the microphone. So if you speak, then the microphone is on, the camera will pick you up. So having said all of that, again, thank you for being here. We have a busy agenda, so let's go ahead and get started. The minutes from our previous meeting on November is before you, November the 5th meetings. Wanted to make sure that everyone had had an opportunity to review these and make any recommendations for corrections, additions, or deletions. Anybody see anything that needs to be corrected? I think Juan has already informed us that his attendance was incorrectly reported, so we'll make sure that that is changed. Other than that, is there anything else that needs to be changed? If not, the chair will entertain a motion for approval.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as they stand.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Okay. The motion passes. All right. Next on the agenda is coordinating board reports and updates, and we're going to go in the order of the name printed here. So Donna Carlin, thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about in regard to Perkins. Many of you may know that TEA has hired the Perkins State Director to replace Vanjie Stice Israel, who retired in the spring, and it is Diane Salazar. She's been at TEA, I think she said, for 14 years in a number of positions, and she worked under Vanjie. So we had our first meeting last week. I had worked with her before because Vanjie was gone in the fall when we there are two annual reports that we have to submit jointly with TEA. The first one is in the fall, and it's a consolidated annual report. So I'd worked with Diane on that report, and then coming up in the spring we have the state plan updates. So I'm looking forward to working with her more. We are going to Washington, D.C. in April, so I'll miss the THECB meeting because it's the exact same dates as the Brustein pre-conference and the THECB meeting, but I'm looking forward to going to that with her as we move forward. There's still no word on Perkins reauthorization. I'm hoping to learn more, but every year that I go to these conferences, I hope to learn more, and there's been very little said. But one of the things that has been made clear is that the Workforce Investment Act would have to be reauthorized first because it was 10 years overdue for being reauthorized, and it was reauthorized in 2014. So hopefully we're next, but then I also hear that it might not be until after the next presidential election. So we heard that last time as well. So we'll see. You know, all that remains to be seen. Again, I wanted to mention the pre-conference at THECB that's being done by Michael Brustein. We've worked with the THECB to help get the word out about this. The super circular that used to be called, which is the grant guidance for all federal grants, several have been consolidated into one. It was being called the super circular. Now it's being called UGG, or the Uniform Grant Guidance. So he'll be Michael Brustein will be doing a session at the pre-conference for THECB. But in the meantime, because we need to get our RFAs out, we are working to see what needs to be updated. We do anticipate that the RFA for Perkins Leadership, in which Wecm and programs of study are funded through, we anticipate that being out in mid-March. And we've already discussed that it might be a situation where, because we don't have anything on the cost principles from TEA yet, We've been invited to attend a session that they're doing on March 3rd and 4th, which is really cutting it close for us getting the leadership RFA out. So we might put it out with the changes that we identify, only to have an addendum put out later with more guidance that we get from TEA. At least that's what we're thinking at this point. And then we anticipate that the basic grant will be out sometime in May. So mid-March for leadership, mid-May for basic. And then lastly, the board did pass at the last board meeting in January our changes that will occur for the way that we distribute the reallocation for Perkins. What will happen the first year, which will be next year, is that those schools that are meeting 3 of the Perkins core indicators, 2P1, 3P1, and 4P1, which is really completion, retention, and employment. And there are 6 core indicators for Perkins. 2 of them have to do with non-traditional participation and non-traditional completion. But we identified those as being, I don't want to say more important, but, really essential for schools to get students in and out and into the workforce. So those schools that are meeting those 3 core indicators will be getting half of the reallocation money. And this past year, to give you an idea of how much money it is, this last year, it was $1.2 million. And there would have, if we had done it this year, about 17 schools would have gotten that money. So, and then after the first year, of half of the reallocation going to those schools that are successful with those core indicators, then the second year the entire amount would go to those schools. But keep in mind, we could have the reauthorization at any time, which would change those core indicators. And rumor has it that although I would expect that, the completion, retention, and employment to still be important indicators, we've heard that what will be going away are the non-traditional core indicators. So, any questions about that or anything I've said? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, Dwayne, do you have any updates?
Okay, mainly just wanted to update you on the 60 credit hour associate degree, the progress we're making on that. We've received most of the revisions and most of the exception requests, well, hopefully all of the exception requests for those. I just want to remind schools that if you haven't submitted your program revisions yet, those are now past due. And so those need to be submitted through the electronic inventory access and update. If you think you've submitted it and you're still waiting for a response for us and it's been over 30 days, you might want to check to make sure it's not still in progress, because that means that it hasn't been submitted yet. And if you have any questions, you can give me a call or email. And other than that, the other thing is the Wecm website has been updated with changes made last summer, but the web page that shows the summary of these results hasn't been updated yet. You can still get the summary of those results from the Wecm website under the Select Reports menu. And again, we'll have a demonstration of that sometime in the future. But if you have any questions about that, again, send me an email or send an email through the Wecm comments. And other than that, that's about all I have.
Thank you. And now, Dr. Gary Tomerlin.
Thank you, Don. Well, I think I should probably start with a thanks to Dwayne, who has done the lion's share of the work on revising the program inventory to comply with all of the 60 semester credit hour limitations. Virtually every degree every degree at the community technical colleges in the state has changed, and Dwayne did the majority of that work. I should maybe pat my own back and say I helped, but after I leave, you can ask Dwayne if that was really help or hindrance. But Dwayne did the majority of the work, and I think it's really. As I'm pointing out, Dwayne should be commended, because we asked the institutions to get us the information by the end of October, and then Dwayne has that virtually 100% turned around. And then I think the next point that I want to talk about, turned around and completed, is that we had a workshop last week on the 2nd and 3rd. Maybe I should have checked those dates before I talk about them. But where we brought in 6 of the health science disciplines, many of the Wecm leadership group worked to facilitate that workshop, and we had a conversation about if there was a compelling academic reason in those disciplines to exceed the 60, and now we have that information, and then we're working as a team to review the rest of the proposals. I think we have about 120 proposals total. The health science ones I talked about represented about 50 of those, so about half of them. And so we're hoping to have that finalized soon. We understand the importance of institutions scheduling and catalogs and all that kind of process. So hopefully we get that turned to the institutions by the end of the month. Then I want to kind of switch away from workforce a little bit, but I don't know if it's really 100% away from workforce, but we are starting to revisit the existing fields of study, and we have convened a engineering advisory committee. The membership of that committee was appointed at the board meeting January 22nd. And actually yesterday the appointment letter went out to those members and announced the convening of the first meeting. I'm pretty sure the meeting is March 4th. Don't quote me directly on that, even though I just said it across the state. But it'll be posted on our website, and the agenda will be posted in the registrar and all that, and it'll be an open meeting. But that committee's task is to review, revise, update the existing field of study, engineering field of study, and then we sent out yesterday also nominations for the music field of study advisory committee, and so that group is a few months behind the timeline of where the engineering group is, but our plan is that we will take the members of that advisory committee to the board in June and July for approval, and then convene that group's work perhaps sometime in August. And I think we've talked about it before, but we have a legislative priority, and we're asking for a little bit of money to really ramp up fields of study. We're talking of reviewing all of the existing fields of study and then moving forward and developing as many fields of study as we need so that we have a pathway from basically every lower division sequence of courses to the upper level sequence of courses. Now, as an example in business, I'm not real sure that we'll have business, finance, marketing, accounting, economics, all that kind of stuff, because you have a lot of commonality in the lower division courses, but that's just kind of a conversation, and we'll figure that out as we go. I'll tell you that Colorado has kind of done this as I just described, and I think their number is 28, that what they came up with. And so I'm not saying that we're going to have 28 or 30 or 32. I don't know what the number is yet, but that's the direction we're headed, assuming we get the support that we've asked for to help do that. And I think the important message there is that it's really not transferability, but it's really what applies that we're working on. And I guess one other point, the National Career Pathways Network, that group is having their annual national conference in in Dallas, the end of October. I believe the dates are somewhere around the 27th through the 30th or something like that. I don't know specifically off the top of my head, but they're having a pre-conference session specifically about Texas and, if you will, the after House Bill 5 in the program alignment piece from high school to community and technical colleges, and so that might be of interest to the group. But anyway, with that, I think that's everything I have to talk about. If there's any questions, I'll get Donna or Dwayne to tackle them for you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Appreciate that very much. Now to agenda item number 3, Wecm Leadership Project Activities Report. Dr. Faye Murphy, Wecm Project Director.
At our last meeting, I discovered that we really needed to step back and rework some of our documents so that we could have a better way of doing our long-term planning. So I started by working with the National Career Cluster Plan, where we have SIP codes linked to OES codes and then to the clusters. So I aligned every Wecm course to the appropriate SIP code in that chart, which allowed me to be able to conduct pivot tables to extract any kind of information that we might need on how our courses are aligned to OES codes or to the SIP codes. I found that this was very, very helpful. So then I moved one step further, because we have to align our Wecm courses to not only the OES codes at some point, but also our programs in the state of Texas have got to be aligned to the national codes. So I created a second chart by extracting all of the approved programs in the state of Texas and aligning them in another chart. At this point, then I knew that it was time for us to do long-term planning. So by using pivot tables, I was able to project out through 2018. So we have a plan through 2018 for revising the Wecm courses and addressing appropriate programs of study in those areas. I think that we're going to find that the time I spent is going to be very helpful in the future. Then the second thing that we worked on is we worked with the coordinating board, because they asked us to help with the 60-hour reviews. So we organized the workshops, or worked with the coordinating board to organize the workshops, which were conducted last week. And frankly, I was very pleased that the members of our Wecm Leadership Committee were able to facilitate those meetings and were able to really communicate with the faculty about their concerns and help them to see how that by selecting the right Wecm courses, we really could get many of the programs down to 60 hours. However, they were able to come together with their recommendations, which now have gone to the coordinating board for their review. So all in all, we were very happy with this. We felt that the coordinating board did a good job of allowing the faculty members to voice their concerns. And they were really very kind about it. They appreciated being able to come together so they could share with one another. So I think the coordinating board really did a good job of addressing this issue. The next thing I have worked on is a preparation for our 2015-2016 application. In this application, we will begin to move programs of study and Wecm a little closer together. Throughout this year, we have found that it's almost confusing because we have two grants, and by having two grants, it's like, how do you separate them? Because they're partners and they work together. So next year, as we continue to work on the workshops for next year, you will see us pulling it a little closer together. As a matter of fact, probably it will become one grant, and this will be very helpful to all of us. So that's what I've been doing, and it's been fun.
Thank you for all your work, Faye. We really appreciate it very much. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go to agenda item number 4, organizational reports. And first up is the TACE report from Kristen Walker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
A couple of things, and I have it all pulled up, so give me just a second to share some exciting things with you. The conference for TACE is April 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Omni South Park, our home away from home. And we're really excited. Our theme is building your toolbox for success. So our focus is providing all of our CE folks tools to take back to put in their toolbox. And I believe as a board and our conference planning committee, we've been very diligent to make sure that the information that's going to be provided will do that. Eric Bostic is one of our presenters. He will come in and do something fun. We always try to have something exciting the first day, but something on the second day very educational that is not just empowering, but that they learn and can take back to be better CE staff. So that's the conference. And a lot of things, we've really reached out to people at the coordinating board through Workforce Solutions to come in and do some very specific training and education with WIOA, all the compliance report. I worked with Dr. Tomlin to have somebody there. So hopefully it won't be the same old things that we've seen in the past, but some of the same old things that we've seen in the past for those who've been there for a long time, because we have so many new people, right, that come every year too. So trying to meet all those needs. So that's exciting things with the conference. And it's also election time. And so if you make sure anybody on your staff is voting or nominating those positions, emails have already been sent out. What regional reps are up and what board members are up for election. Kathy has done a great job, thanks to Kirk's guidance, trying to get all of our ducks in a row for the review of the special topics class. We had an outstanding training session, WebEx type meeting. I think it went really well. There were lots of questions answered. I know Kathy, as the leader on that initiative, felt much more comfortable and confident going into this review. So just this last week, she sent us all of our to-do list. So we're on target to meet the timelines that we've agreed to here with the leadership committee. So that's exciting, and I think will be beneficial for everybody that it be done in a timely manner. And we have some new people who are serving on that board. Serving on that for us, myself included, Frank Graves, who is the vice president currently, and neither one of us have been involved in that, as well as Kim Davis from Amarillo, who has been in CE for a long time, but is helping with us, and Cuttingham as well, who's been in CE for a long time down at Del Mar. So it'll be interesting, and Joe's serving as well. So we have a really neat kind of group, some newbies and some not so newbies. So I'm excited about that we've pulled that together, and the training done, the review's ongoing right now, and through that initiative, really under Kirk's kind of direction and Frank's. He's our web guy because he does everything on our website, and it's pretty fabulous. He created this whole little web page, so now it's a living document, and we don't have to think back of who's where or who's supposed to be serving, and it's a place where any one of us on the review team can go and access all the documents, access the PowerPoint that Kirk created. So I think it's really great. And what we'll do is also make some pieces of that available to our entire membership. So it won't be like this secret thing type thing. You don't know until you're on the inside type thing. So I'm excited that, again, that's a tool that we need to be providing our membership, that they have access to that kind of information. And so that's done. And the one request that TACE would like to bring to the Wecm Leadership Group is in the change with the 60-hour degree plans. We had staff, administrators, department chairs, faculty utilize the Wecm database to find new courses to meet that 60-hour rule, and gleefully chose a 0 credit hour class, not knowing that it was a CE class. So it went to their academic boards, it went to their leadership. Look, I've made a 60-hour degree plan because there's no credit hours in this class. To then be told that that's a CE class. So we really feel that there's a need to indicate that that 0 credit hour is a CE class for those who are new and those who maybe aren't so new, but didn't investigate. I don't know. Y'all can understand how that happens in big districts, small districts.
Sure.
So our request is to somehow in that note CE classes, that 0 hour is 0 semester credit hour is a CE option.
Good. That's a good point.
Don, I have
Yes.
a question, just as a follow-up to her comment about that. I know that the coordinating board is working on that document that we're going to have for the rest of the state to see. So this is why it's so important to get this thing out, this Wecm 101, or probably we're at a higher level now, but do we have any idea when that's going to be
That's a good
put out to the
question.
public?
Dwayne, do you have any sense of that?
No, basically with the 60-hour rule, we've been kind of bogged down with that, and so
Yeah.
we're
Okay.
still have it somewhere on the shelf, but it's
All right. Well, let's make sure that the minutes reflect that the question about the professional development tool was raised, and we do need to get a sense of where we stand related to that. Thank you for bringing that up. And Kristen, I'd also like to just comment. That kind of a comment that you just posed to us about the 0 credits, I would like to make sure that the TASTE membership has a feeling and understanding that the Wecm Leadership Committee wants to be responsive to TASTE and the TASTE membership. I would encourage you to encourage the membership to pose questions. The Wecm comments page that's available on the website is everybody's resource to be able to raise questions. And it gives us an indication, because when those comments are sent in, all of the leadership members receive a copy of those comments. And it really gives us an indication of the need for additional information or training. There have been several comments sent in the last couple of months, which clearly indicate to me personally that there's still need for some communication. Some of that would be, I think, satisfied, Raphael, through this training tool that we are talking about, but also just information that can be presented at conferences as well about how to use the Wecm search process and that kind of thing. So again, encourage your membership to submit comments. Thanks. Okay, now we're going to ask Kay Young from THECB to give us an update from the THECB organization.
Okay, good morning. The THECB 2015 conference theme is going to be Back to the Future. The 2015 THECB conference is going to be held April 8th through the 10th at the Omni downtown Austin again. The conference will offer a pre-conference session titled An In-Depth Discussion on the New EDGAR, which will be presented by Michael Brustein, as Donna Carlin stated earlier. The pre-conference session is co-sponsored by THECB and the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. The conference registration this year is a little bit higher. It's the conference registration fee is $250, like it's always been in the past, and the pre-conference fee is a little bit higher. It's going to be $105 because we're also going to include a copy of the new EDGAR for the participants of the pre-conference. Also, if you or anyone at your college, this is very important. So if you or anyone at your college is interested in presenting a breakout session, and co-board members, you're included, of course, please contact Shanna Munson. She is on the board of THECB, and she is taking those applications right now. And I know we're looking for a few more presenters. That's all. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. One thing that I think Terry Nix was helping us with this information yesterday, but we'll discuss this in more detail in a few minutes when Catherine gives an update from yesterday's task group. But we are needing to talk with TACD, but also TACE and TCCIA group for the TCCIL conference in the fall, and we are having a need to talk about possibly doing a pre-conference facilitator training session for Wecm. So just want you to make a note of that, if you will, Kristen and Kay, so that your organizations know that we're trying to put together something that would be involved with doing a pre-conference session that would be focused on encouraging folks to think about becoming Wecm facilitators in the future. So, thank you. Okay, and now we have a brand new person to join our group. Susan Carter is with Tarrant County College and is going to start representing TACRO on our leadership committee. And so we thank you very much for being here today.
Well, thank you, Don, and TACRO was delighted to be included with representation on this committee, and I'm looking forward to learning more about what you do and working with all of you. I also represent TACRO on the Texas Common Course Number System Board, so those things are very tied closely together. TACRO has, for several years, included presentations about Wecm at the conference. Steve has presented, Robin and I presented together a couple of times. So it is a topic of great interest to TACRO, and we really appreciate your including us. Our annual conference is in early November, and it's going to be in Houston, and plans are underway for that right now, so I'll bring more information about that to you as that progresses. But for now, I thank you for having me, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Some of you who are newer on the board, or those who might be watching, may kind of wonder off the top of their head, why would we have the need to have TACRO as a part of the Wecm Leadership Committee? I'm going to do just a real brief explanation because I think it's informative and helpful for everyone to have that understanding. The fact of the matter is, we all know this kind of intrinsically, but we don't think about it off the top of our heads. Transcripts live forever. They do. They live forever. Once a course goes on a transcript from an institution, it's there forever. And so the importance of having a Wecm course by number, rubric, and name lives forever. And so this becomes very important when we're trying to create a brand new rubric, because we sure don't want to make the mistake of using letters in the exact combination that have been used in the past. That would create major confusion for registrars. So it is very important that we access information through TACRO to ensure that we have an unused set of letters that we're going to assign to a brand new rubric of courses. So
I'd also add that TACRO members, who are registrars and admissions officers primarily, are also very involved in the articulation of courses and programs and transfer of students among institutions, which they do freely, as we all know. Right. So anything about coursework, not only a transcript issue, but also a transfer issue. So we're very interested in it from that aspect as well.
Thank you. So again, thank you for being here. I appreciate your willingness to serve. Okay, now we're going to switch gears. Agenda item number 5 is Catherine O'Brien, our protocol manual. And just as a note, the chair-elect, whoever that might be, actually serves as the keeper of the Wecm protocol manual and is responsible for working with the leadership committee on ensuring that the protocol system that we have is maintained properly, is updated when needed, so that it's transparent across the state. We post on the website a copy of the protocol manual. Those of you who may have noticed this, but if you go to the coordinating board website and look for the Wecm in the Wecm search engine page, on that home page, you'll see down in the right-hand corner 2 links. One is to an overview or a guide about how to do Wecm searches, and the other one is the protocol manual. So, Catherine?
Okay, thank you very much, Don. I have begun reviewing the protocol manual, plus as we have begun the programs of study process, we were looking at, do we need a separate protocol manual for programs of study, and how would that merge with the existing protocol manual for Wecm maintenance? And the decision, and I guess want to say the recommendation that has come out of the task force is that we probably need one manual and that we need to put these together. This is going to entail looking at the different models that are in the protocol manual for how we do, whether we do a model 1, which is our kind of our regular maintenance of our Wecm courses. Do we do a model 2 if it's a few colleges use a few courses around the state? We have that model. Model 5 has always been used for if we had new and emerging technology and we brought industry in for their input. Well, the Model 5 really also kind of applies for what we are planning to do with the programs of study. So that model needs to be revisited so that we can put that together. There was some terminology in our protocol manual that is a little bit old. Example was, it says like unique local need. Well, over in the ACGM, we do have unique need courses, which means something different. So there's those little words that are in there. So what I asked yesterday at the task force, and I think we're going to come to this body for your input and approval today, is because it is a larger project than just little fixes that the chair-elect might be responsible for, I have asked that we form a subcommittee, and I have asked that Robin and Kirk serve on the subcommittee with me. Also Jeff Parks, since he is overseeing the Wecm Leadership Grant for the program of study, and then we put together a subcommittee to go through the entire Wecm protocol manual, make the necessary revisions we may need to make, but also to merge those and then bring them back to you as a revised manual to be voted on perhaps by our next Wecm leadership meeting, our quarterly meeting. We will send it out to you before the meeting. I'm not going to deliver a copy to you here and ask you to vote on something you haven't seen. So as we do our work, I will send it out in advance. The other thing that I was asked to do yesterday is we'll start with the copy that we have, but we don't want to lose the history of the changes and while we're making them. So as we work with various versions to get from what we have to what we are bringing to you, we will be saving the track change version, and so we'll provide that as kind of an archival history of how we get from point A to point B going forward. So the permission I'm asking today is to formulate that subcommittee to work on the protocol manual.
Any questions of Catherine before I pose this officially? Okay. The chair will entertain a motion then to establish a subcommittee for a review of the Wecm Protocol Manual. Do I hear such a motion?
Don, I move that we go ahead and get the subcommittee together.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. So the subcommittee is comprised of Catherine O'Brien as the chairperson of that subcommittee, and will be comprised of Kurt White and Robin Garrett. Is there anybody else?
Jeff Parks.
And Jeff Parks. Okay, very good. Thank you all for agreeing to serve on this subcommittee, and we'll look forward to seeing what comes out of your work. And Catherine, know that, you know, I'll be glad to assist.
Oh, yes. I think the common word now is speed dial.
Yep.
Okay, update, I guess you need the next one?
Yeah, I'm going to ask, just as a footnote here to everyone, Dina was not able to be here today, nor were Joyce Williams. Both are very ill. I know Joyce actually has the flu, unfortunately, and I think Dina, if not the flu, some type of infection that prevented her from being able to even get on the airplane. So in Dina's absence, Catherine agreed to provide an update of the Wecm Task Group. The Wecm Group met yesterday from 10 until 5 to talk about this summer's workshop and then future planning as well. So I'm going to ask Catherine to give us an update of the task group.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. Not to quibble, but we worked until 5:15 yesterday. We actually we went overtime, which was fine because, and I wanted to say that it was a lot of hard work and brainstorming yesterday. We did planning for this year, so for the 2015 Wecm revision / programs of study, we will be looking at 3 programs for programs of study this summer. And the dates on that, Faye, correct me, are May 19th, 20th, and 21st at the Transportation Center at San Jacinto College Central Campus. The 3 programs that will be going through programs of study this summer will be business management, accounting, and the business office technology programs. Excuse me. However, we will also need to look at the real estate course maintenance this summer. You may recall that real estate went through the program of study last summer, and one of the things that we learned through that process was to do the program of study and then wait until the next summer to bring together that same cluster to do the Wecm maintenance did not make sense. So the feedback from the facilitators and all of us who observed the process was it needed to be done at the same time. So this year, that is why business management, accounting, and business office technology will have their program of study immediately followed by the Wecm maintenance of the courses within those programs. That means then 3 programs of study in May, plus we have to go back and pick up the real estate. We did the program of study last year, but we have to pick up their maintenance this summer. So 3 programs of study and 4 Wecm maintenance workshops will be conducted during that week in May. Now, we had a very long discussion yesterday about how the facilitation of the programs of study and the Wecm maintenance will look as we go through it this May. if you are familiar, we always have 2 lead facilitators who kind of oversee the facilitators. And then if we have facilitators in training, the facilitators in training work in the room with the facilitators, okay? So for the 3 programs of study, Dina and Don have been asked to serve as the lead facilitators. What we are planning to do is to have 3 facilitators for each of those 3 programs of study, and then have what we think of as kind of a program of study facilitator in training. These are already trained facilitators, but they will kind of be sitting second chair, if you will, to the program of study facilitator so that they can watch the process for future years. And I'll talk about the 2016, and you'll see why that piece of it is necessary. Then, as we shift from the program of study work immediately into the Wecm maintenance piece, that second person, we're calling him kind of the program of study fit, will become the facilitator for the Wecm maintenance, because they have just finished observing the program of study process. They see what some of the courses are that are going to be recommended to be part of the program of study. It makes sense then to immediately use them to help with the Wecm revision piece of it. The program of study facilitator will kind of, if you will, they'll flip. The Wecm maintenance person then will have the program of study facilitator sitting there, if you will, kind of second chair to them to provide them with some assistance. So we will have actually 2 people for each of those pieces. 2 people for the programs of study who will then switch places for the Wecm maintenance piece of it. And again, we think this is necessary. So even though we are kind of looking at only those 3 programs, before I move into what 2016 looks like, is everybody okay with that model this year?
Again, just as a possibly, especially for individuals who might be listening to this or who might view it later, the challenge for the task group is we have a limited number of individuals who currently have been trained, if you will, to be program of study facilitators. And real estate was a beta test. This summer, we're going from doing 1 program of study to 3, and you'll hear in a minute how that's going to expand in the future. In order for us to be able to expand and have more program of study workshops going on each year, we have to have individuals who are skilled in knowing what it takes to actually oversee a program of study workshop. So we're really trying to do a ramp up of the training process in preparation for next year and the following years.
Okay, thank you, Don.
I also have another comment regarding we need to really pay attention to some of these programs of study where you have no external agencies giving you guidelines as far as what the curriculum should look like. I know that the real estate was not easy, but it was a lot easier to negotiate what was going to go into the programs of study. As we start looking at programs that have no accreditation from external agencies or anybody regulating what's being taught, it's really important that we do a good job at capturing what industry has to say as far as curriculum is concerned in the content of the courses. So I think we need to highlight to the public that we have a lot of colleges teaching programs and there is no guidance from anybody. So bringing this group of business and industry partners to the table and having a team of facilitators and training and facilitators is going to be critical. And not only here in the business and the management and office technology, but as Don and Catherine have mentioned, it's going to get really complicated as you start looking at some of the technical programs that don't have any bodies accrediting them. So it's really important that we spend quality time with the facilitators in training and in the existing facilitators, so we do a good job at providing a set of courses and programs of study for the state to share and, guide the colleges with good information. If not, we're going to end up with the same mess that we have now in some of the disciplines. I'm not saying they're all like that, but this one in the management is really complicated. So look at my area at our colleges, everybody's doing something different. So I think this is going to be a critical part for the state. The state's going to benefit greatly by doing a good job with this programs of study.
Excellent point, Raphael. In fact, I just mentioned to Catherine, I think she's going to provide a little bit more information now that you brought up the point about business and industry.
Thank you. In looking for the industry representatives to sit on these programs of study, we did have a lengthy discussion about this yesterday. We will be reaching out to Texas Workforce Commission or the local workforce boards. We will be reaching out to chambers of commerce. If there are state accreditation areas, real estate was one. We will reach out to those. But if there is no, accreditation and these are the industry standards, we'll be looking at like TSSB. There are standards that have been created with industry through that organization. We also discussed using our own advisory boards as a source. Pros and cons to that idea, because we want this to be a statewide, far-reaching, more than what we think of as our local advisory boards providing information to us as local community colleges, much more far-reaching. Some of the criteria that we looked at yesterday for where we're going to be looking for industries, some of it is much like what we look for as we identify the institutions that are going to serve as instructional specialists at the Wecm workshops and the programs of study. Diverse demographics, we're going to look at specialization area representatives. For example, if we're looking at business management next year, then we need an assortment of business managers and what those managers are. And it may not be like a higher level manager, it may be a first line supervisor. We discussed the similarity of this between what we're getting ready to and the THECB process that many of us have used to create new programs in institutions. We're going to look at state geographic representation. As we look at, for Wecm, we want small colleges, we want large colleges, we want cities, we want the metroplex, we want the rural areas involved. We're going to look at representatives who are on college advisory boards but may not be on college advisory boards. And then we talked about we want people who have had or currently have at least 3 years in a manager position if you want to ask them to give you information on management. So those were some of the criteria. We'll be presenting all of this tomorrow to the, what do we call it, Program of Study Advisory Committee. So we still have to work through some of those details tomorrow. But again, a large and diverse group of industry representatives is going to be needed for this process.
Actually, what the task group had recommended to the project staff was that we have a minimum of 10 business industry representatives per program of study review, so that we get a good cross-cut of perspectives, taking into account all these criteria that Catherine just mentioned, and hopefully by having roughly around 10 business industry representatives, then we get what would be considered kind of the standard for the state of Texas.
Okay, so what does next year, 2016, look like as they begin preparing the grant? Next year, we have 4 clusters that will be ready for review. These will be Cluster 3, Arts, AV, Technology, and Communication. Cluster 11, Information Technology. Cluster 13, Manufacturing. And Cluster 16, which is Transportation and Distribution. We have winnowed it down and are not ready to report which programs within those 4 clusters will be the exact programs of study. We've narrowed it down a little bit to possibly anywhere from 7 to 9 programs, but again, we have to have the input from the advisory committee on that piece tomorrow. But again, as Don just said, if you're thinking 10 industry representative, 9 programs of study, there's 90 industry representatives that are going to have to be managed next summer. We're looking at 4 workshops for those because some of them, 4 clusters means at least 4 workshops next summer. But even if we don't do program of study for every program within those 4 clusters, and we are not going to, that still will leave 25 different programs that we will have to do what we think of as kind of the Wecm maintenance on, as well as a couple of programs that will have to be the Model 2s because there are not that many of the programs throughout the state. What I want to assure everyone, though, that what we are discussing are those programs that have an economic impact on the state of Texas. So we're looking at the rather large programs, the far-reaching programs, and the programs that we know will make a difference and need to move forward in the economic status that we have and want to continue to maintain. So it is going to be a very busy 2016, which is why Don was saying we desperately, not desperately so, but we definitely need to do a pre-conference at TCCIL and get more facilitators in training, especially if we're going to need to use 2 facilitators, one for the program of study immediately followed by one for the Wecm maintenance, in addition to all of the Wecm maintenance we have to do. One thing I want to point out is several years ago we realized that our let's look at every technical program every 3 years cycle no longer worked. We moved to a 4-year cycle, and as we did so, we did not get to information technology. They are up for next summer, so you can imagine a program that we used to look at almost every year. Then it went on to the 3-year cycle as things slowed down with information technology. We now need to do some serious Wecm maintenance, plus identify some of the areas in there for the program of study piece of it. So that is going to be, I think, our largest one and probably our most rigorous test case for our program of study model. So that is my report from the task force, Don.
Very good report. Thank you. It was a busy day yesterday. A lot to consider, a lot to for us to try to plan for. Those of you who are not involved in this detail of planning, it may be a little confusing when we give you these reports. I would refer you back to the minutes that we approved at the beginning of the meeting. At your leisure, you might want to look at page 4 and 5 of those minutes. Those minutes give an overview of what the workshops will look like for this coming summer. Again, to give you just a general sense of how we break up those 3 days, 2.5 days basically, and the process flow, if you will, moving from how we do our planning for the program of study and then move into Wecm maintenance. I would also like to, especially again for those who are viewing this now or would listen to it later, we still have a commitment and a responsibility as a leadership group to make sure that courses, just as Catherine was talking about, while we did go from a 3-year cycle to a 4-year cycle, we do still have the responsibility of reviewing courses in the Wecm manual, even those courses that are not going to be a part of a program of study. Those courses still exist, and especially on the CE side, whether they be the CE mirror courses, 2-credit courses, or whether they be the CE standalone courses, the short courses and so on, professional development courses. Those courses are still critically important to what we do here in the state of Texas, and so we have a responsibility to make sure that we're maintaining currency of the information related to all of those courses. So while you hear a lot now of focus on program of study, the fact of the matter is that Wecm, in the maintenance of the courses in Wecm, still are at the heart of what we have to be concerned about. So just want to make sure that folks understand that.
Chair, may I make a comment? Would it be helpful to let the committee know about our tentative timeline for requesting the instructional specialist, since that will be coming up when the letter comes out?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Catherine may have to go and look at that list of the dates.
I do have it, if you'd
have
like
it?
me to.
Great,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
The call for instructional specialists is tentatively set to go out on February 17th, and then the online administrator nominations are scheduled to be due back February 27th. So there will be, and then following that, there's going to be some other emails going out to the instructional specialists if you want to elaborate on how that's going to transpire. But it's mainly look for it around February 17th, and it needs to be back to us February 27th.
Right. I'm going to actually turn over to Faye. If you'll kind of pick up from this point, I think it would be instructive not only to the folks here, but those who might be listening.
Thank you, Don. We have reworked our website for nominating instructional specialists. 2 years ago, they were nominated based on the zip code of the courses, and we found that basically faculty members really don't follow zip codes, and administrators do not either. So last year we revised the process so that the administrator nominated faculty members based on the courses they were teaching. This didn't work either, simply because you have an administrator who has many faculty members, and we're saying over the past 3 years, and this really would require a great deal of research. So many simply checked every course that was on the list, and of course that would be every course in that particular rubric. I questioned that we had anyone teaching that many courses, so discovered that maybe there was a flaw. So we came back and looked at the outcomes from those 2 years and revamped the website. So this time, hopefully Tuesday, administrators will receive a message, an email, and we will use the contacts that the coordinating board has established, the contacts in each of the colleges. In addition, we will also post this on the THECB and the TACE websites. So Tuesday, you will see this letter, okay, and you will have a link. The administrators are to nominate the faculty members. They go to this link and they nominate the faculty members based on the workshop, okay? And the rubrics will be listed in each of those workshops, and we will have 4 areas. They will nominate them for one of the 4. Real estate will not be a program of study, but we will have faculty members nominated to review the courses. Then we will give, after a period of time, then the faculty members that have been nominated will receive an email, and they will be asked to give us additional information. So then we'll be collecting the information on the specific courses they've taught. We really like to use this in selecting faculty members so that we can have faculty members that have expertise in as many courses as we can. It is almost impossible to have faculty who have taught all of those courses, but we want to come as close as we can. They will receive up to 3 reminders if they have not filled out the form. Then we will collect that information. It will come to me in the form of a spreadsheet so that I can see the administrator that nominated that faculty member, the faculty member's name, and what he has taught in the last 3 years, as well as which cluster that he has been recommended to work on. At that point, they will receive a letter directly from the staff of this project asking them if they will agree to participate, because we want them to say, oh, we filled out this form, but we're going to come. And this comes from the far past and what has been learned from faculty members needing to be reminded and to give some commitment other than being nominated. And once they respond to that, then they get information on the hotel and that they are to make their own reservations and they are to pay their own way. All nominations must be completed, and the reservations made, as I just learned today, we thought it was the 20th of April, yesterday, but the contract for the hotel says April 18. So all of this will have to be completed and finalized by April the 18th for the workshops to begin on May 21. So May 19th, I'm sorry, May 19th, and finished on 21. You can see this is a very busy time to try to get all the materials ready and to move forward. But I'm so excited about bringing faculty members in because, as you have heard several representatives say today, we have a lot of new people in the state. We have a lot of faculty members that are the only person teaching in a particular program. So one staff person. And they really do value the opportunity to get together with colleagues across the state. I think I had 5 people to come to me at the end of the workshop to tell me that they had learned more in that workshop than they had learned in professional development in years. Well, that makes me pat myself on the back, but at the same time, it tells us as a committee that we really must use every technique that we can to help faculty in this knowledge of the state system, and that's really what we're talking about. And it really goes beyond Wecm, and I want to say this to Suzanne, also reporting. This becomes a very important process, declaring majors, the whole system that feeds into what Donna talked about earlier, and that is accountability. So we have a big job to do to help these young people, new people, to become integrated into the system that's been around for a long time.
Thank you, Faye. Just as a summation point, and I'm going to go back to Robin, since you've got the dates. Let's remind folks again what those dates are.
Of course. I closed the book. Let's see. Where did they go?
While she's looking for that, what I want to do is make sure that everybody understands that this is really a 2-staged process for nominations. Only administrators can nominate the faculty. That's part number 1. Faculty cannot nominate themselves, okay? So that's important for everybody to understand. So part 1, stage 1, is for administrators to nominate, and that call for nominations goes out next week on February 17th. And the deadline for those nominations to be submitted back is
February 27th.
February 27th. So basically, we've got a 10-day window of time for administrators to do their nominations of their faculty for these workshops, okay?
And then Faye will be working on getting the letter out to the instructional specialists around March 3rd.
Right.
So that they can look for that and reply with the additional information needed about the courses that they teach.
Part of what we had to do, folks, to work around, if you will, our institutional time off for spring break. And very often what happens is that whether it be faculty or administrators, we're all human beings, and when we're getting ready to take some time off, it's real easy when you come back from a week away to totally forget that, gee, I didn't do anything about submitting that nomination. So that's the reason why Faye indicated that there are going to be 3 reminders going out pretty quickly after the initial next week on the 17th. There's going to be some rapid reminders going out to administrators across the state. And again, I want to just close the loop here. While Faye mentioned, in addition to the coordinating board sending it out through their listserv, or what used to be their listserv, it's not a listserv anymore. But TACTI and TACE are being asked to also push this information out. Faye, do you have the information of who you are to send this to through those 2 organizations? Okay. All right. Very good. Okay.
Chair? Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
yes,
I have
sir.
a comment. We didn't discuss timelines for the facilitators in training, and so I'm assuming the project is going to send out letters to those that are going to be participating. Can you comment on that, please?
Good point. Faye, I want to make sure that we have closed the loop on that from our discussion yesterday. Do you have clarity on when you're supposed to be sending out that information?
I'll try to send it out on Friday. I don't know that I can. We actually did make some selections, okay? And I really want to call them personally and talk to them about it,
okay,
and what the responsibilities are. I just want everybody to feel comfortable, because we really are moving into a different arena, and we've got to learn how to be a facilitator for a program of study, and at the same time be able to do the Wecm update.
Right.
And so I really want to talk to them personally, and I probably will do that. But I might send an email if I can't reach them. Okay?
Right. Right. Very good. Thank you. So as everybody can see, there's a lot of moving parts to this thing. We're trying to make sure that we don't make any missteps as we go along. Those of you who are not directly involved with the task group, again, as we are trying to explain this to you, has this raised any questions in your mind, or are there any things that you want to make sure that we've covered? Joe, do you have anything that's...
Just a reminder, if there's any discussion of changing the tool that's used to capture the data, just to let me know what changes you need.
Okay. Very important. Okay, we're going to be Steve, I know we kind of passed over your name yesterday in some of this because we were thinking that you were maybe going to be retiring fairly soon, but anyway, since that's not the case, then we have another potential candidate here too.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. All right. Okay. If there are no other questions about either this summer or what we're starting in our planning for 2016, then I'll move to the next agenda item.
Don, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, ma'am, please.
So you talked about the process for getting the faculty, and I know that Catherine talked some about the business and industry partners. Is there a formal process for soliciting them like Faye just described for faculty, or is it more loosely established?
Yeah. Faye actually will be the person who will be sending out correspondence to... Again, what we're going to do is she's going to go through TWC, get the names of all the workforce board chairs, and letters are going to go out to those workforce board chairs. We are going to be eliciting also from chambers of commerce chairs across the state, as well as, again, eliciting through the programs that are going to be up for review, asking the colleges to submit names of their advisory board members. So it's going to be a pretty time-consuming process because, unfortunately, none of that has been kind of automated per se. So it's going to be a fairly manual process that Faye, at least for right now, is going to have to pursue to elicit all this information. So
It sounds like a pretty time-consuming process.
yep.
Actually, Don, I intend to follow the same format that we did last year with
Right.
real estate, and I sent a letter to their professional organization, and I did get a response. But from that, then we extended to other sources,
Right.
and we used the same letter. Certainly, it'll have to be revised, but that's what we'll do. And then I just simply follow up manually, lots of calls, that kind of thing. It is time-consuming,
Yeah,
but this is different to the faculty members. I can tell you that at this point we've had 4 Wecm comments from faculty asking when they were going to be able to receive the nomination information. So, we kind of have that system in order. We've got to work ourselves
Right.
into a system for business and industry. And I think the only way I know how to do it, and certainly I welcome your suggestions, would be just simply to use a lot of personal time and energy to build relationships. But I had a funny thing happen, and I have to tell you all this. This summer, I received an email from a person who served as an industry rep in real estate. And they had made some changes in some state regulations, and she wanted to be sure that I would distribute that to our faculty members that were a part of this committee. Cheers. That's exactly what we want.
Right.
We just want to be sure that we're all working together so our students can get good jobs and they're prepared for the jobs, and our colleges can do the job. So anyway, it's fun.
All right. Well, thank you, Donna, for bringing that up.
And I'm thinking down the line that, what if you get to a point where you have more people nominated than you have, more than the 10 that's
Wonderful
the ideal
problem.
number. Right.
That's a
So
wonderful problem.
Will you have a vetting system to
Yeah.
where you
Yes.
select?
Yes. And again, we'll be using criteria that Catherine was talking about, making sure that we have representation across the state, not just from one geographic region of the state, making sure that these are from the rural areas of the state as well as metropolitan areas of the state, making sure that it's going to be very important that these individuals represent the breadth of the industry. That's going to be very critical so that we don't have expertise kind of bunched up into one component of an industry and we don't have representation from other parts of that industry. So it's going to be very time consuming to kind of go through and make sure that we've kind of done all those check marks.
Donna, one of the things we did yesterday is we looked for and identified a SIP to ONET crosswalk. And so we used the SIPs for like business management, went in there and identified what would the managers look like? I mean, where would they come from?
By job title.
And because industry works by job titles, they do not work by zip codes. So we found that the managers were everything from retail managers, managers of IT. I mean, it lists within the ONET a very diverse group of managers. And then if you click on that, it actually drills down within ONET to like some of what the job descriptions are. So this gave Faye, I think, a great resource to be able to identify if we are doing a business management program of study, who do we need from industry and what is the title of that manager that we need from industry so that we do get the diversity that we're going to need on these committees.
That sounds great. I was able to attend the first day of the
Yes.
field programs of study meeting, and I thought one of the things that was so good about the business representatives is that I think all of them had taught at some point. I think they had a really good understanding of both sides of both academia and workforce, and that brought a lot of really good value to that group.
Thank you. Well,
Mr. Chair, I just have one,
Yes.
one recommendation. I
Yes,
think
sir.
for the benefit of the team here, I'd like to see that we put a link for all of us to be able to see what Catherine and you pulled up yesterday on it. So those of you that have not seen the crosswalk, it's a really good tool, not just for what we're doing with Wecm,
Right.
but if you're developing a program at your college or institution, it's a great tool. So I know that all of us have access to the Dropbox for the Wecm, right, Faye?
right.
No.
Not for the programs of
I
study,
have
but-
not opened up Dropbox to everyone, but I'll be glad to. And what I probably will do is set up a new Dropbox,
think that'd
which
be
would include materials we've talked about.
Yep.
But I really do need your help as I begin to draft letters. It's amazing how you can cut out words or you can add another word that I haven't thought of to make these things clearer. And so I probably, with your permission, I'll create a Dropbox, and as I create these letters, I might even send you a little reminder, please go and check this out. Right now, you can see the task group does have Dropbox, and all of our materials that we covered yesterday were in Dropbox, and for the most part, everyone they were familiar with materials before they came. It's not that they had studied them all the way through, but they pretty much knew what materials that they were going to get in their booklet when they got there. So I think we can do this job, but we really need your help, because we want to do it right. This is a very important project.
I've gotten a request for a break, but Dr. Tarmelin, do you have some comments before we do that? Okay, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. Yes, Kurt?
One related question.
Okay.
Just really quick, would it be necessary as the information goes out to the chambers or people within our communities that our colleges know that communication is going on in light of the chamber president calling somebody at the institution?
Sure, I think that's very important.
Information
Yeah,
about?
absolutely.
So whomever
Absolutely.
needs to send it.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take about a 10-minute break, so we'll come back at 11:05. Also, I've asked during our lunch break before we come back on air, I've asked Dwayne if he would pull up the link for the nominations form so that everybody can see that just as information. So we'll do that at lunchtime, and then when we come back from lunch, then Dwayne can show that to us. Faye can kind of give a sense, and Catherine. Chris Duke, who is at San Jacinto and works for Catherine, is the individual who really works behind the scenes to do the programming and the setup for all of this, and he's done a very fine job for us, so we appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to move us then to the next agenda item, and that's the THECB Committee. Kirk White is going to give us an update.
Sure, and actually, Kristen gave that update earlier in her update.
Yes.
So I just wanted to point out a couple of things. This is the first time through that the committee is working under the new updated protocol that we approved last fall. That included the additional professional development or orientation for the committee. We did hold that orientation via webinar on January 9th. It was very well received. Everybody seemed to appreciate the overview. Joe was there, and he he knows this stuff, and so I think he covered just about everything that we needed to cover. I wanted to applaud TASTE. They have a full committee this year, and they even had somebody who had to drop at the last minute that they replaced immediately. So we have a full committee. Very good. Kristen mentioned the committee website, and it was a great idea. The committee now has a website that lists the committee membership and their terms, so it's out there permanently, and we don't have to recreate the terms, who's been on what and how long and that kind of thing. We know who's rolling on and rolling off, as well as every one of the documents they use in the process is out there.
It might be informative, even for folks who have been on the leadership committee for a while, just as a refresher to folks what this committee is all about and why it is a committee.
Okay. And I always forget the year it occurred. 2010, was it about? Sounds about right. When the Wecm project was a challenge to cut budgets. We'll just put it that way. And one of the solutions on shortening the summer Wecm workshops to save funds and to shorten the process and the amount of time that people actually were staying at the workshops was to remove the review of the continuing education special topics and local needs courses from the live workshop in the summer, and to allow the TASTE Wecm Committee, which was a standing committee of TASTE, Texas Administrators of Continuing Ed, who didn't always have a real specific charge, but it was a standing committee, to take on the process on an annual basis of reviewing all of the continuing education special topics and local need courses that are submitted by the colleges prior to the summer workshops, so that all of their review outcomes then can be delivered to the summer workshops and be validated or acted upon. And so that process has been going since the spring of 2011. Started it in 10. Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Robin started it in 10, and then I picked it up. And as a standing rotation, the past president of TASTE is always the chair of that committee, which that means next year Kristen's it. And then they have the 6 members that represent the TASTE regions across the state of Texas, who are people at colleges that have either been facilitators of Wecm and or are responsible for submitting, writing, approving special topics and local needs at their colleges. They spend the spring reviewing all of the courses. Dwayne, the co-board, gives all the data to them, all the actual course submissions. It's just like it was a course review in a summer workshop. They were looking for, is it a real Wecm course? Is it well written? Do the learning outcomes make sense? Are they written in workforce terminology? If it's not a valid workforce course, that information is kicked back to the coordinating board, which is then kicked back to the college that wrote it. If there's a trend that is identified, then recommendation for a new continuing ed Wecm course to be written are made, and actually the committee will draft the course, and then that goes to the summer workshop for the faculty instructional specialists that are there to wordsmith if they want, or simply accept it and approve it and get it into the Wecm. But the process has been working really well. We added this year the additional orientation and the role of a mentor. If the current chair of the TASTE Wecm Committee is not very versed in Wecm, maybe doesn't have that background, then they have a mentor backup from the Wecm Leadership Committee that helps them through the process. That would be me now. Yeah. But that's basically what the committee does, and the process, I think, is working well.
Thank you, Kurt. I think it is instructive for folks to understand that what this process is really about is to ensure that when courses are presented to the instructional specialists at the summer workshops, that in essence those CE special topics courses, especially the special topics courses, have been vetted by CE people themselves to ensure that they meet the standards, if you will, of Wecm in terms of, as Kurt said, they're written for workforce purposes, not for avocational CE purposes.
And I think that was a good point that I neglected to cover, is that traditionally the CE courses are being looked at by primarily college credit faculty,
right,
who may or may not give the attention to them or understand the perspective of CE,
right,
with the courses. So now that it is CE professionals who also rely on their CE instructors and faculty at their own colleges, if they can't answer questions when they're doing the review, they go then find the content experts that can at their own colleges to get feedback on, what do you think about this course, or does this make sense, that kind of thing.
Right. So again, I think this is our own quality control mechanism, if you will, to ensure that when courses are presented to these instructional specialists, that they've gone through this vetting process through continuing ed organization. So,
couple more things to expand upon Kristen's update, the prior update. When it comes to the TASE conference, we will be doing the usual Wecm update at the end of the conference, I think, the closing session, and Kristen's presenting that this year. We will also have the typical Wecm 101, which evidently we're both presenting, because that's how it was submitted. We're both presenting at the conference, and in both of those, going back to the comment that was made earlier, we do reinforce using Wecm comments, how to sign up for the IP listserv, and all of that. So we will be reinforcing that information at the conference again this year. And I did want to kind of circle back to the question about, could we put a CE label on CE mainly mirror courses, I guess, seemed to be the problem in that situation, or if that's even an appropriate label to put on, because now that we've talked about program of study, we've talked about maybe putting a potential program of study label on the courses that end up. So these labels, this is I think it's a Wecm protocol issue in general, and is it appropriate to add that kind of stuff to the specific Wecm course?
I think you've raised a very valid question, Kurt, and I think it's something that our group needs to talk about. Let's kind of put it out for discussion right now. We don't necessarily have to come to total closure or conclusion on it, but I mean, that's the reason why we have these kind of meetings, is to dialogue through these issues. So I would open the floor up for discussion.
Yeah, Don, and just to let you know, with the older or previous version of the Wecm website, used to have that designation on the courses, and also used to have the list of course with the contact hour range. These are things we've been working on. We've received comments from the field asking, adding some additional information, like on that first report you see when you search for a course or a list of courses, to show what contact hours and then credit hours, and also I guess when we revamped the database and put in the new reports, and it, probably partially my fault, but for some reason I didn't think that column with the SCH or CEU designation was that important, because everybody knows which is which, and suddenly realizing that there are a lot of new people coming to the colleges and may not have that knowledge. So that's something we will work on, getting the reports to show which are CE and which are credit courses.
So, Dwayne, you're talking more about reports, but Kristen, again, and you may not know the answer to this, but when you got that feedback, was it just someone that goes in and looks at a course?
Yeah, I mean, imagine.
So not necessarily a report, but when they just go in and look at when
they went to reduce the
like they
course
see
numbers.
4 credit, 3 credit, 0, then they're assuming incorrectly that that 0 represents a credit
class
version, rather than a CE version. Well, things have kind of, and again, I'm trying to be careful here, but when we have things now in the state of Texas that are called non-course based courses, NCBOs, and we actually wind up transcripting non-course courses, it becomes confusing, folks. We have created a lot of confusion for ourselves. And so I think, I understand that maybe somebody who's not really very familiar with Wecm, just doesn't understand that zero means no credit.
Don, I'd like to comment on when we start to move, as we begin to move forward on programs of study, I believe that it's very important that we do label those courses somehow so that it's easier for people to understand those courses. Plus, I would say as far as tracking of information down the road when we look at data, and after we've gone through a cycle and we begin to look at the data more closely to work with business and industry, I think that much more information is going to be crucial to be able to set up better programs of study as we continue to evolve.
And just an observation, we're sitting here going through the Wecm. When you first do a search, I did MDCA search. That first list that comes up, what we now have is that second digit, which is what we're talking about, the 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, is an X. So looking at the master list, it's an X. It's unclear whether it's credit, CE, or neither, or both, or whatever.
So part of it's how it's positioned.
You have to go into the course, and then you have the options. But the column is labeled semester credit hours, 0 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So we're actually saying 0 is semester credit hour if you want to read it that way.
Right.
So,
Dwayne, I mean, is that tracking with...
Right. That's what I was talking about, getting those. I guess the other issue was if you do a search, you can select the type of course. Like if you're doing MDCA, you can select SCH or CEU or other types of course. If you select SCH and then you search for the courses, what we need to, I guess, clarify is that actually calls all courses that have a credit hour version. And it also calls up the 0 version of the CE version with that group because how they're grouped. And that was kind of the question that they clicked on SCH for the search, and then they came up with his courses with the 0, 3, and 4. And so they assumed that they were all...
Well, I guess then the big elephant in the room is what would it take to reprogram that?
And we chuckle about that. But I'll work on it with our staff.
Okay. Yeah, because I know when you get into, programming efforts, then that can become more extensive than what we might realize.
I have a question for Kristen and Kirk. So right now, the issue of, the C standalone courses, do we have a problem with those or not? Those come up fine, and if you're trying to get a course, for a program that you're working with, those should come up without a problem. But it's the ones that are
initial
mirror.
search list still has the second digit X'd out.
Okay.
So there could be some confusion there. Once you get to the course level, I don't think there's a problem with the CE only.
The only thing I know that's not there is like if you're looking for special topics, if you put in like a 1091, it won't pull up. And so you have to go, you have that panic for a moment. Oh my goodness, it's not out there. And then you go just look at the rubric. So then you pull up POFT or MDCA, whatever, and then you go down the list and you see, oh, there really is a 1091. But you can't search for POFT 1091.
Okay.
It won't pull up.
I found that quite a bit too, and not just with special topics, but when you're looking for a CE specific and you put in the full rubric, it won't bring up anything. If you'll just leave the course number out, it will bring up the whole list so you can search through. So that would be another recommendation I would add. And I think to talk about your first question, Kirk, my opinion only is it's a training issue, as we've all identified. So I think as soon as we can all get a tool to help train throughout our colleges, it would probably relieve a lot of this misunderstanding of what semester credit hour courses mean versus CE.
Well, I think, first of all, we do understand that there is need for constant training and retraining of staff. Just given institutional turnover, reassignments of folks, that's always going to be a need. So the more we can provide those kinds of tools, just like Kristen was talking about in their conference, toolkits for the institutions, we need to make sure that we've got proper toolkits at the state level for people to understand how to properly use the Wecm. So that's going to be very important. Faye, did you have a comment?
Yes, I guess I have a concern, okay? We have a lot of new people, and I'm always concerned that these new administrators understand that when you teach a special topics course, you're supposed to submit a form so that it does feed into our system. And if they do not do that, we really don't have the information we need in order to add courses to the Wecm. One of the most frequently asked questions of our instructional specialists is, how do I get a course in the Wecm? Okay? Well, that is the process. You submit a special topics course, it is reviewed and considered to be a Wecm course if it meets the standards and there's a need.
Which again brings up the fact that there is this interrelationship, if you will, between the manual, if you will, our web-based manual of Wecm, and the guidelines that we operate under, which are contained in the GIPWE, and we still do not have information about when the coordinating board will have an approved new version of the GIPWE. So that's something that we're still waiting to across the state to know.
I could add one comment on the special topics. I know a lot of occupational areas don't have a 2000 level course for professional development, and have heard and noticed a lot of times special topics being used as such. It might be something that the Wecm leadership team look at as we go through workshops, in my opinion, to be sure that there is a professional development option in each occupational area, because I think that's a huge misuse of special topics.
Well, I hear what you're saying, Megan, but here's part of the issue. And again, this goes back to maybe some folks who really are not as conversant with some of the prior year rules and regulations. About 3 or 4, I cannot remember exactly now, legislative sessions ago, which would be about 6 or 8 years ago, the legislature put in a rider in the appropriations bill that basically said that institutions could not get reimbursement for courses that are being repeated by students if that student takes the initial course and then takes it, repeats it, that the institution can receive reimbursement only for the first take and the second take, but the third take and thereafter the institution cannot get reimbursement. Contained in that was information about the coordinating board establishing some rules related to all of that. And so what we have is basically permission or allowance or exemptions, if you will, from this limitation on certain courses. Special topics in CE is not limited to that 3-take policy rule, and professional development for CE as well. Now there's a few others, but specific to this discussion, I think we have to make sure that we are kind of trying to create in the Wecm would be compliant with these limitations. At the same time, we have to be careful that we're not trying to stand between the institution and state auditors either. We cannot be the protector or the go-between between an institution and the state auditing office. The institution has to stand on its own to be able to prove that they are adhering to those requirements. But we do need to make sure that we have contained in the Wecm those courses that are appropriate for professional development. And so basically it's state mandated, state agencies that require professional development. It's not just a professional organization who might require the professional development. It actually has to be a state agency mandated professional development. So those are kind of some of the differences. And so if it's kind of a professional organization like CPAs, and the CPA organization says that we expect our members to have so many continuing ed hours every 2 years or something like that. That's different than the Texas Real Estate Commission saying you must do this, in professional development to maintain your license. So does that help? Okay. But again, going back to this whole issue around how we are labeling information in the Wecm, Dwayne, it would be helpful if by the time we have our next meeting, if you could kind of give us an update of where you think things are with respect to how we might address some of these issues. Thank you, sir. Okay, we're moving along pretty quickly here in our agenda, so I'm going to move us now to other business. And again, this is kind of, we're almost in other business already with that discussion, so let me go ahead and open the floor up to see if there are other things. I have a few things that I want to bring before this group under this category, but wanted to open the floor up and see if there's anything else that other members from the leadership committee wants to bring before this group. Okay. All right. One of the things that and in fact, Donna, we can have some of this discussion offline as well, but I want to make sure that, the task group yesterday discussed some concerns that we have as a task group, and we're going to wanted to express it to the leadership committee, and that is the concern that we have in our protocols a triggering mechanism that would cause us to have to call a Wecm workshop. This is not even talking about program of study. This is just strictly straight out for Wecm issues. One of our protocols is that if we have mandated state changes in licensure or certification, for example, if the State Board of Nursing comes up with a new regulation, or the Texas Real Estate Commission comes up with a new regulation, or the Texas Council for Criminal Justice comes up with new certification requirements for police officers or an emerging technology. We have in our protocol the requirement that we need to go ahead and call for a Wecm workshop. The problem that we're faced with is that currently the way, and understandable, the way that the coordinating board staff has to work with this leadership grant is that being stewards of federal funds, we have to account for every dollar put in the budget and spent and so on. But it really takes away from the flexibility of the Wecm process being able to respond. So it almost serves as a braking mechanism to what we can do to be responsive. So that's something that we're going to want to talk with the coordinating board staff about, is if there are mechanisms or ways by which, if something comes up, almost like an emergency situation that we need to call a workshop. We kind of saw it through what happened last week with the program of study to get to the 60 semester credit hours for those workshops. But there needs to be some mechanism by which we can respond when we have to. Otherwise, we're not keeping the Wecm up according to what we say we're supposed to be doing. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention and just to acknowledge the fact that there's needs to be some discussions about how we can accomplish that.
And Chair,
yes,
that's even more prevalent with the switch to the 4-year cycle versus a 3-year cycle.
That's true.
That things would come up more.
Yeah, that's true.
So just to clarify, you're talking about things that are more than something that could be handled in an amendment to the grant. You're talking about additional funds.
Yes.
During a year.
That's correct. Yeah. And I know what y'all have been trying to do lately is once all leadership grants have been funded for the year, then any additional funds that you have in leadership, y'all kind of reallocate out.
Right.
And so, and like I say, understandable, y'all are having to be stewards of these dollars, and you have to stay accountable for every dollar that's spent or not spent. So I understand that personally, and I think the group does as a group. So we just need to kind of puzzle through how. And it's not that we've had all of that much demand in the past to do this on an ad hoc basis.
Right.
But I guess the point is if we have a protocol that says this is what we're supposed to do, if that happens, then the question is, how could we address it with the coordinating board staff about how we would get those funds?
And this year was a little different in that we worked hard to get the reallocation out and have all the grants approved for basic prior to December 26th.
Right.
So we do have a little bit of time even for leadership. Once the cycle is approved, we have some time from. It's usually going to be around November that we determine that those funds are being reallocated, because once that's done, it's the money is gone. Right. So if we know between the time the grants are approved and November, at least that's past the start of the
between
year.
Basically September 1 and November 1. You have about a 2-month window there.
Right, because we also, in addition to sending out the amounts to the schools, we also have to submit, the coordinating board has to submit an amendment to TEA.
TEA, right.
And so this year we knew that we were going to put the additional funds in for the 60 semester credit hour workshops.
Right.
And we had a little bit of cushion money in addition to that for reserves. So we're learning too as we go along what we can do kind of offset that.
Sure, sure. We just felt, the task group just felt that it was important that we have this dialogue.
No, I agree. I think it is important,
Yeah.
and I think it really has brought home to me the big picture of what you're doing and combining the work of the two grants,
Right.
and what that really means from a fiscal perspective, especially these big workshops this summer. And I'm glad you really emphasized the point of it's not just the work with the programs of study, but it's also the work for the courses that are not in the programs of study, and let's not forget that.
That's right. That's right.
All of that's important.
Yes,
so I
it is.
appreciate the dialogue.
Good. Thank you, Donna.
I have a related question, because we've mentioned a change in industry standards mid-year. We've mentioned an emerging technology mid-year. One of the other things in the past that has prompted a special or added workshop would be another Perkins Leadership Project creating curriculum. And I'm just wondering if the co-board still reminds those projects that they need to build in money into their budget for that extra Wecm workshop. Because I know we've done that in the past here and there.
Right,
Actually, a couple
yeah.
of grants that
That's
I've
a good
been
point,
on
yeah.
is that if a special curriculum project is being done, that they anticipate the cost of their own workshop rather than relying on the contingency that's not currently in the Wecm projects.
Right. Good point. Really good point.
Mr. Chair, I also have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Donna, regarding the push from the federal government and the state for external certification of a lot of these programs across the state, let's just point welding, for example. As you move to programs of studies and you have programs across the state that want to become certified, if they want to do that, you may have to convene those groups back. Even if you already have a program of study in place, but you're trying to meet the guidelines, you may have to bring them back together to help them put these programs in place so they meet those guidelines from whether it's federal agencies or some international organizations. We see a lot of that going on because you guys also want us to put out students, we all do, that can get jobs right away and are certified by these external agencies. So I think that's another big push. All the colleges across the state are being told, let's have some credibility with your program. Well, how do you get credibility? By industry certification saying your program meets the standards, whether it's American Welding Society, National Center for Construction and Research, or Don mentioned the nurse, the Board of Nursing. So we really have to pay attention to that as we push more colleges to implement programs that are similar across the state. Well, if you're in a rural area and you don't have the resources to sit down and go through all the documentation, well, here's a good opportunity. We can put the group of colleges to have those programs and help that one college that doesn't have the certification in place. So that's another point that we need to consider if we're going to help the colleges get their certifications.
Raphael, that really brings up, I'm glad you mentioned that, because also the coordinating board uses state leadership funds for and working with TSSB, Skill Standards Board, and predominantly that's been like Del Mar College in the past that's been kind of overseeing the process by which our institutions seek some funding to help underwrite that effort. So actually what you're bringing up to me is kind of a relationship between those like national certifications and that kind of thing, along with what we've been doing for a number of years now with working with colleges for TSSB approval.
And we were just notified, though, that next year they will not be seeking that grant because there's some reorganization at the TSSB board. And so they're going to wait a year and then plan to come back, Del Mar College, the following year for that grant again. But for next year, they will not be seeking funding.
Okay. So it's due to TSSB reorg?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. If I remember correctly, just recently, our new governor made some changes with respect to those parts of the governor's office and economic development, and I think TWIC and TSSB and several departments, if you will, are being realigned under the economic development department, if I recall correctly. So I kind of understand and have a sense of why that delay is being requested.
But one of the things, though, that I did want to say, and this may be obvious to everyone, but I'll say it anyway, is that, new legislation that requires things like in nursing, I remember, there have been several sessions when they put in the 2 hours in the hepatitis C and the sexual abuse. Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight. There's usually a phase-in period.
Right.
So I think it is important, though. I mean, we monitor legislation, but if there are areas that we know have been passed and are coming down the pike that we need to consider these things, it's really important that that information be discussed, I guess, among us, so that we can plan for these types of situations.
Right. And again, because we now are and have always had some type of a cycle, whether it was a 3-year cycle or now our 4-year cycle. But again, what that might do is we might not need a workshop in October or November, but we might need an extra workshop in the summer to take care of something that's out of cycle, if you understand what I'm saying. In other words, if, for example, giving nursing again, if nursing is scheduled for 2018, but something passes in this session that would cause the Board of Nursing to have to initiate something and they want it effective in 2017, then we would have to do something for nursing in 2017 rather than 2018.
And Don, I remember we did have to do that for nursing. We had to do it for EMT, and I think there's some changes also coming from FAA.
Right.
Fortunately, in 2016, we will have aeronautical coming forward, but if we did not, if they were not scheduled until 2018, you can't put off for 3 years revisions that need to occur within a technical program.
Right. Yep.
I understand.
Also, one of the discussions that we had yesterday in the task group that it's probably actually going to require probably another subgroup. I'm not sure we necessarily have to create one today, but what came up as a result of discussions last week from this, the 6 disciplines that had to go through the trying to justify something more than 60 hours. Some of the faculty pointed to the fact that part of their issue or problem in their inability to get down to 60 specifically had to do with the contact hour, semester credit hour, and or external learning experience charts that are currently part of GIPWE, Wecm, for lecture lab, clinical, practicum configurations. Those charts were built when Wecm was first being created back in the mid-90s. And so probably, folks, we owe it to ourselves to do a long, hard study into the efficacy of whether or not those charts need to be left alone or whether they need to be updated. Now it's a major undertaking. I can tell you because I was partly involved with looking at those charts when they were first pulled together. And it's not something that you can do in 1 or 2 2-hour sessions. It takes a lot of looking at all kinds of implications and trying to make sure that we're staying. I know there's a lot being questioned nowadays as we look at competency-based instruction and the question at the national level about what does a credit hour represent. And so you get into those kinds of questions when you start looking at these charts. You really do. You get into this whole Carnegie credit unit concept. So it's not something that can be taken lightly. But I think we probably do owe it to ourselves, our institutions, our students, to consider the possibility of doing that kind of a study. But I would think that it's really going to, in some respects, take some acknowledgement from the coordinating board itself to be willing to allow this kind of study to take place. So I'm not prepared right now to put this forward as an official recommendation, but I will say that it is something that was brought up at the workshop. I think at least we owe it to ourselves to consider the question as to whether it needs to be investigated or not. And I'd be interested in anybody's opinions about whether or not we should be looking at this.
Don, I can speak to that personally since I facilitated the sign language, and there was one course in particular as we started going down through which courses help you get to that 60 hours. And it was an 80 contact hour course, but it could be taught as a 3-hour version or it could be taught as a 4-hour version. The difference was in, one of them, what would that be, 5 times 16? Okay, one of them was a 3-hour lecture with a 2-hour lab possibility. That required that it be, I think, the 4-hour version. Another one had a different lecture lab makeup to it, Donna. That required that it be a 3-hour version. So they could have, if you would, saved themselves 1 semester credit hour if they could have moved to the 3-hour credit option. And I know we've had lengthy discussions about the contact hours. We didn't want colleges in their need to seek 60 semester credit hours and drop a credit here or there to also be restricted on the contact hour side of it. And so some of them were very adamant, no, we have to have 80 contact hours for them to be successful in that. We could use the 3 credit hour option if we had more flexibility in the lecture lab option. So that was one example of how those discussions went.
And Catherine, the respiratory therapy group had the same exact issue, as well as some of them were concerned about the lower amount of lecture hours in some of the higher contact hours, that they felt they needed more lecture time.
The interesting thing about this, though, is, just think if you were a student, okay, and when you pay tuition for courses, and you're paying tuition by credit value, okay, on the credit side of the institution, I'll put it that way. And on the CE side, you're paying per the contact hour, if you will, CEUs, and contact hours. But so what I'm posing here is this: is that, you know, from a consumer truth in consuming kind of a issue here is that if in order to lower credit hours, you're giving more contact hours, okay, then in essence you're paying less for more.
But the corollary to that is
exactly,
if I'm a student, say I've gone, the program's jumped from 72 to 60, and the contact hours really haven't changed that much.
Right.
I'm now going through a program and only getting 60 credit hours that carry forward on a transcript to another degree or whatever, when I used to get 72 for the same amount of work.
Right.
Now I've paid less, woohoo!
Right.
And financial aid paid less, but the credits moving forward are less.
Yeah. So these are the kinds of things that I can tell you. We actually discussed back in '95 when we were looking at these charts. Was you have to kind of strike a balance of what. Again, going back to the Carnegie unit and the credit, and what does a credit in a lecture versus a credit in a lab, and all those historical discussions about the time it takes to prepare for in classroom versus labs and all of that. You get into all these big philosophical discussions about. So it's kind of it's fraught with a lot of, in some cases, can be pretty emotional discussions from folks.
Well, and I know, Don, another piece of that discussion yesterday is that while we are trying to get to the 60 semester credit hour to get the completers through and into the workplace as quickly as possible, 90% of community colleges' funding, at least for the community college, is still based on contact hours. So, we have to look at both sides of that coin as we're moving forward, too. And that is a big piece of this discussion.
Yes, it is.
I think Gary highlights this at every meeting we have, and he sits in, is regarding and I saw this at my group, with the Allied Health group that came up last week, radiography. The issue of if I got a 3 credit hour course at my institution and another institution has the same course and it's 96 hours, are those two courses the same? And, we have a rep here from TACRO, and, there's going to be questions like that come up all the time. I think having the programs of study is a great thing, but there's still the possibility of someone enrolling in a course at one institution and trying to transfer that course, and because they're manipulating the credit hours, the course stays the same, but maybe the contact hours are not. And how do you let a student know, look, this course was the same? And we had some comments in my group saying, look, I'm not going to accept that course. Although it's the same course number and outcomes, I am not going to take that course because we teach more contact hours in the clinical or practicum. So we also need to look at that. So the faculty are up against the wall here. My course is good, but this other institution is saying no because we don't have enough contact hours.
I think, Raphael, you've really hit, to me, the real heart of the issue, and that is, again, back in the 90s when we started creating the Wecm, and we had some of this discussions yesterday, when you look at these lecture lab configurations matched to contact hours, our institutions are different around the state with respect to how we pay for faculty load. Some institutions do it on a credit hour basis, contact hour basis, and so when Wecm was first being pulled together, basically the coordinating board was being told, hey, you know, there's a limit to what y'all can put on this because how restrictive you can be, because that actually messes with institutional authority on a faculty pay system, really. So there was a certain amount of flexibility that was allowed, if you will, when we built these charts to represent kind of the standards by which institutions operated at that time. But really at the heart of it is this, and that is what you've just brought up. If you have so much variance in the contact hours allowed for a particular course, then the question rightfully that needs to be asked is an 80-hour course and a 144-hour course really the same course? You know, how can you teach in 80 hours what's being taught in 144, or the converse to that is, what more are you providing in that 144 that's not being provided in the 80? And so, truthfully, I would understand a faculty member at one institution saying, hey, you know, we require these many hours in this course, and if you only require half of it in your course, then it can't be the same course. I'm not going to accept it. So I think in essence we are kind of creating our own problem here by allowing too much of a range in these charts. Now we have to be careful, because just like what Catherine said is, we're talking bread and butter when you're talking about contact hours. Since 90% of our funding, at least for right now, still comes from contact hour reimbursement. But there needs to be some sense of equity and attached to the quality. So again, that's what we're going to have to wind up doing, is trying to figure all that out.
I was just looking at the schedule. I have one of these on my computer.
Yep.
And it says at the bottom, other allowable patterns are available for special circumstances. Because I was looking at what's preferred versus other allowable.
Right.
Special circumstances, is that something that has to go through the coordinating board when they do that? Can you explain?
Well,
no, they just do it and that's their special?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because there is a huge gap between in a 3-hour course on those other.
Right. And again, what kind of came to light, and I think what was being spoken to by a couple of folks here about last week in these sessions, these workshops, is where we say that the lab hours and what they equal to in credit versus the lecture hours. And again, that gets back to this old argument philosophically about the value of lab time versus the value of lecture time. But some of this flexibility that these folks were asking for was, you know, gee, if I could have more of the contact hours that's sitting over in the lab area dedicated towards the lecture, you know. So not all 80 hours equal the same in terms of the lecture lab configuration. Well, I see that our lunch has arrived, so I'm going to call that for us for a lunch break, and we're going to take until 1 o'clock. for taking care, and that was very good. We enjoyed that. Prior to our lunch break, I had alluded to the fact that what we wanted to do was to give everybody a chance to look at the online nominations system that has been put together for this year. And Dwayne has that up and running now. So Faye and Catherine, as I alluded, Chris Duke is the person who really works behind the scenes to work with Faye, and Catherine has agreed to kind of assist in that process as well. And so what you see before you now is the improved system from last year. And Faye indicated that certain things had been changed from last year. The task group had a chance to review it yesterday. Several of us actually had a chance to play around with it before we met yesterday, so that we could make sure that it was operational and ready to go. And I think if we can just kind of walk through it right now. Can you see it from where you are, Faye?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
As I indicated earlier, the administrators will receive a letter, or they will receive the notification via TACTI or TACE websites. And when they go into the link which is provided in that letter, this form will come up, okay? And you can see we have 5 teams. Team 1 is business administration. Team 2 is also business administration. However, it is the support services under business administration. Team 3, finance and accounting. Team 4, real estate. And yes, we want nominees, but they will not be nominated for a program of study as well. And then Team 5 is insurance. We want nominees. However, we will not be holding a formal workshop. It will be a Model 2 workshop. So one of our facilitators will actually contact the instructors that are nominated, and we'll work with them via distance, most likely. Robin, what is the system you use for that?
Basically what you said, and you contact them, you schedule a convenient date to meet and review the courses via an electronic format, be it a WebEx or whoever the instructional the facilitator is, would have access to some sort of an online meeting method. And they would all log on at the same time, review the courses as if they were in the same room, and make the recommendations.
Actually, we only have one functioning real estate program in the state, so this is very limited. But we do have courses. 2.
Insurance. You said real estate.
Oh, I'm sorry. Insurance. I apologize. Only 2 insurance programs in the state, and so definitely this has to be a Model 2. We have several courses, but only one program. And as you move down the form, you can see it gives instructions as to what you're to do. It stresses again the fact that these nominations are due on March the 2nd. We really want to hit that real hard, that you've got to meet the deadline, because once we close it out, we can't come back and accept nominations.
Hey,
Come on, yes.
That date did change, so we want to make sure we change it on the form, right? What is the new date,
February
Robert?
27th.
February 27th. So
Okay, February. I started to say, watch these dates, because we have to go back in and check those again. February the 27th. I'm sorry, I don't have them in front of me. Okay, let's move on down. So the administrator, based on the information they have on the previous screen, will select the team that they want to nominate these faculty members for. In some cases, they will nominate them for more than one, okay? and they can actually look at the list of courses so they can see if they're nominating that faculty member for the right team at the course level. Then they come on down and they enter the name of the administrator themselves and the email address, their title, and college. You all, we're building a database of all of these administrators. I know that we can never be static, that we have many changes, but this database is going to be helpful for in the future in terms of notifying administrators of some things that are going on. Then they move on down and they enter the faculty member's name, first name, last name, email, and the college. Now, this information must be correct because it will be from this information that the faculty member will be notified to select the courses they've taught in the last 3 years. So you go on down and submit. Well, next, and then submit. And we're still at the rubric level. And we're hoping that the administrators will be able to handle this. And I know when you have many, many instructors and you're talking about business, you have to kind of narrow your focus and think, what are the business courses that this faculty member is teaching?
Dwayne, could you go back? Dwayne, could you go back? One screen. It's where the administrator says, "I acknowledge, I understand." It's basically saying that It's basically acknowledging the fact that the college is going to be responsible for the travel expenses associated with that faculty member.
Don, I wanted to point out one of the difficulties that Dwayne is having right now, we noticed yesterday, is that the back button does not work. It either needs to be the previous or the next button that they use on that. So.
Yep.
Catherine, I think we made a note yesterday that somewhere on the form at the very top, there'll be instructions that you are not going to be able to use the back button.
This is it.
Yeah.
So
here is the comment that Don just called to your attention, that you are promising to pay the cost of the faculty member who will be attending this workshop. We do not have these funds built into the grant. And when you submit, you have agreed to do this. Now then, if that particular administrator wants to nominate a faculty member for another area, then they must fill out another form for that faculty member. And it gives you the opportunity to go back and go through it again. However, yes.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. Many of the Perkins Basic grants include funding for travel for these Wecm workshops.
Right.
Would that be something that maybe could be in there? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, maybe.
Donna, we did have money built in for the programs of study, for faculty to attend the programs of study. But when we realigned the workshop so one came before the other, and we looked at the total cost, we felt that, number one, it would not be fair to be paying the fee for part of the faculty members while others would not have their expenses paid. So when I revised the budget in November, I removed that.
Right, but what I'm pointing out that many of the basic grants include the costs for travel to workshops.
Yeah.
Not all though. So.
Right.
I do now know what you're talking about now, Donna.
Actually, I can say in Dallas, I know that's usually part of the planning that goes into our submission annually for our basic, is the acknowledgement that colleges are going to be using some of their Perkins travel funds to pay for faculty to go to Wecm workshops.
I think Donna has a good point. A lot of the colleges don't know, and if we just put a blurb there, you can use your Perkins for basic grant.
Check with your Perkins basic grant director to see if any funds have been allocated for this purpose.
Yep. I think it's a very good point.
That is a very good point. Because if they're not building it into that basic grant, they probably should consider doing so.
Yep.
I had the same problem in the test mode, and finally we sent the information out to all of the Wecm task group, and when Kirk responded, I went to his letter and I hit that link and it opened, and it was not a problem.
However, yesterday it didn't open for me.
You had the same thing.
Yeah. So
we have talked about this problem, and Kurt and Chris believed that it was related to the fact that I was working with him on the test, and he had entered so many problems that all of a sudden it was, not working. So I have not gone back. I went back last night, and by the way, it wouldn't open last night from the link that I was provided. So we will call that to his attention again, and we'll see what we can do about it.
But I guess it's the important thing to point out about the form when the instructional specialist goes in, they're given a list of all the courses with the rubric N numbers, and they select which courses they have taught. So this would be a more accurate description of what experience those instructional specialists have versus the broad experience from the first nomination where it just shows the rubric.
As a reminder to what Faye said earlier in her report, last year when we were using the administrator's nomination form, it was the administrator that was filling out for the faculty they were nominating. It was the administrator that was supposedly supposed to list the courses that their nominee had taught. Well, not in all cases would the administrator pay close attention to that list, and so they were misrepresenting the expertise of their faculty that they were nominating. So basically what we're trying to do is to garner more correct information about faculty expertise by having the faculty themselves complete that part of the information. So hopefully we will get more complete and accurate information. But there is still the possibility, as Faye said, there is still the possibility that we still may have, within all the Wecm courses that we're supposed to review, there may be a lack of a nomination for expertise in a particular course content area. I mean, that's always a possibility, but we're trying our best to elicit nominations and be able to determine up front what we believe the expertise will be when they attend.
I have a request of you all. If you have this problem, please let us know, because Chris is working on it. I mean, this is just a part of developing something that's new. So just let us know so we can get to it immediately and let that faculty member know to wait a little while, and maybe we can get it up and going again.
All right. So we have hopefully now everything ready to go so that by Tuesday these will be sent out and we'll start receiving nominations.
I believe Catherine has already notified Chris of these date changes. I will talk with him on Friday.
Okay.
And ask him to be ready to open the website on Tuesday.
Very good. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. If not, then let's kind of the last thing that we need to do for today's meeting is to talk about when setting dates for next meetings. The last time we met, we talked about the fact that it is very difficult for the project staff to try to be ready to hold a leadership meeting prior to the workshops, because it's from, as you can tell from the timeline, from March on through when the workshops are being held in May, the project staff is really just totally focused on getting the workshop ready, especially now since we're doing these program of study merged with Wecm workshops. So it's going to be doubly difficult. So we really need to consider when we want to try to meet next. Normally in the summertime, what we've been trying to do is meet in the late part of July or early part of August, no later than the end of the first week of August. So just wanted to get a general sense of when folks, here we are in February and we're already talking about late summer. Probably most of you hadn't even had a chance to think about vacation times yet. But just generally, you have a basic sense, I think, from year to year when you and your family or folks, friends or whatever, y'all take off and do a vacation or whatever. So either the last week of July or the first week of August, either of those 2 weeks sound okay? Is there a particular preference?
Do you normally meet on Wednesdays, or is
normally on Wednesdays? Because generally what we do, just so that you know, is that the task group always meets the day before to do all the nitty-gritty work to present the next day to the leadership group.
every year TACRO sponsors a meeting with the coordinating board down here, and that is always the last week of July.
Right.
But it's the senior colleges come in on Wednesday afternoon, and then the community colleges come in on the Thursday. So if it's always on Wednesday, that wouldn't be
right. Well, let's look at the first week of August then. I think that would be first Wednesday of August, which is the 5th?
August 4th, 5th.
So the 5th would be the leadership, and August 4th would be the task group meeting.
Yeah, according to the calendar, the boardroom is not available on Wednesday the 5th.
Okay, the coordinating board calendar, okay.
Until, well, it's available at 10 o'clock.
Okay. All right, let's go.
I'm sorry,
go
did
ahead.
I understand, Suzanne, to say that you come in on the evening of the 29th, or they meet on the 29th?
The senior colleges come in on the Wednesday of the week and meet for that day and a little bit of the morning. The community colleges come in on the Thursday and meet Thursday and half of Friday.
Okay, so that does tie up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay.
It's the last, whatever the last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of, that was when it would be this next year.
So could you be here on the 29th?
Uh-huh.
So you could? on the 29th?
That's the Wednesday, right?
Okay.
Yeah, if we looked at the 28th and 29th.
Yeah, let's look at 28th and 29th. Then 29th would be leadership, and the 28th would be the task group. Is that okay?
What Dwayne says about the event.
Yep.
Because
we have the boardroom available on the 29th.
great. Okay, let's go ahead and set it then. Because the July board meeting for the coordinating board is the previous Thursday. Is that right? Okay. Very good.
Right.
All right. Is there any other business that needs to come before this group? Well, not hearing any, then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.